So let's jump in, all right? If, first of all, I want you to understand that ChatGPT, being a language model, is extraordinarily easy to use on the surface. You type in a short sentence. This is what most people do. Give me a list of social media ideas, and ChatGPT, in incredible speed, spits out an outcome. And that is the very basics of it. However, there are people who now even have careers as prompt engineers. These are people who are specialists in understanding the language model or even developing new models for different purposes, so that the results that you get from ChatGPT are even more incredible. Today, what we're going to be talking about is some of those very basic level prompt options, how to install or how to open up a ChatGPT account in its simplest place. I'm not going to go into deep detail on that. It's very straightforward. And to then start to show you some prompts that you can create inside of ChatGPT. So let's look at installing or opening up a ChatGPT account, right? The place that you want to go is called Open.ai.com. There are other AI services that exist. Bing has one. Google it's actually already released their service called Bard. It is possible to get access to both of those services, but the one that we're going to talk about today is ChatGPT, because that's the one that's presently the most ubiquitous in terms of what people's understanding is. When you get to the main screen, there's a login area, and then there's also an area where you can sign up for a new account. So I'm just going to click on sign up so you can see what that looks like. And there's a couple of ways that you can sign in. You can either create an account using your email address, yes, or if you already have an account, you can log in this way, or you also saw that login button on the main screen. It also allows you to use some of your existing email service providers, for example, Google, if you have a Microsoft account, or even your Apple ID as a way to sign in. Because I already have an account, I won't create a new account for you right now, but I will show you at least one area that I use on a regular basis, and this is the playground. And playground is, generally speaking, for probably more advanced users. Let's see what's going on here. Whoops. Sorry about that, guys. I unshared my screen by accident. And for a lot of people, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that you use Playground, but if you are an experienced GPT user, then I strongly encourage you to have a look inside of Playground. With ChatGPT, the information and the format and what's available to you is pretty much there. There's not a heck of a lot that you can do beyond what is already presented to you. However, with Playground, that's one of the areas that you can use to start to train GPT to do some of the things that you wanted to do. So let me go back to trying to share my screen here. Oops. And there we go. All right. So this is what the playground area looks like. We'll just resize that. And very similar to ChatGPT, you can actually type in commands or comments or words, and Playground will submit or complete some kind of response to whatever prompt you put in. Yeah, very simple and straightforward. But what I like about the Playground that you don't have with GPT is the ability to change the different models that GPT uses and to experiment with different things. So the default model for most people when they sign into ChatGPT is the Da Vinci model, and that is, generally speaking, the fastest model. It's going to be the one that has the most broad information that's out there. But there are faster ones that can also give you less, sorry, not faster. Sorry, I'm losing my thread here. faster models, but don't quite have as much data available to them. So if you needed something super duper quick and very on the surface, then some of these other models might be available for you to use. You can also set up different parameters for the amount of data that GPT will analyze at any given time. And you can even create code or take the code that is created and import that into your own website if you're that technically inclined and you know something about Python or PHP and different programming languages. So it's a very useful area. But again, it's not generally speaking the area that most people will want to step into as an introduction to ChatGPT. The vast majority of people will probably go to the GPT window. So I'm going to open up um, a window for us right now. So here's the screen that most people will be greeted with. As you can see here, there's different flavors of GPT that are available. The most current model that's generally available or widely available is GPT-4. But for most people, GPT 3.5 is the best model to use. If you need to get into some real depth with something or to a really deep dive in a very specific way, for example, computer coding or something like that, then you might find that using GPT-4 provides you better results than GPT 3.5. But for the vast majority of people, you won't notice that. But what you will notice is two things. GPT-4 is slower than GPT 3.5. That's one. Number two, you can't get GPT-4 mostly unless you're willing to pay for it. You can see mine says GPT Plus. Most of you will just see Chat GPT when you go to your Windows. And the amount of data that you're allowed to use is limited with GPT-4, whereas it is virtually unlimited with GPT 3.5. Theoretically, it's unlimited with both at this time, but the ceilings, you get to a certain ceiling of use. So you can add, I think, 25 different prompts within GPT-4, then you have to wait a few hours, and then you can add more. Whereas in GPT 3.5, you do have limitations, but I believe it's much higher. I so far have only once in the entire, 6, 7 months that I've been doing using ChatGPT, have I ever come into any of those ceilings. So unless you're just hammering away at micro prompts, it's unlikely that you're going to run into that ceiling. And if you do, shut it down for a little bit and come back, and you'll find that whatever it is that you're trying to do is right there for you. All right. So one of the things that I did warn you about with GPT is that it does have the ability to give you bad information. And so you do want to be careful with that. But let me just walk you through the basics of a GPT prompt and how I would use GPT for for my business. Okay. Here's the way that most people use it. Write a list of 10 social media ideas I can use in my Instagram this week. Yeah. And as soon as you write that, within seconds, GPT goes to work. It's very polite. And not only, now bear in mind that your results will look a little bit different to mine. And let me explain. I've been using ChatGPT, like I said, for 6, 7 months, something like that. And the more you use it, particularly if you are saving the history of your chats, which you can do, particularly with a paid account, it will start to understand the kind of information that you want, and it will start to shape its answers based on that information. So the very first time I did something like this, I literally just got a list of one-liners. But as it started to understand that the majority of the things that I'm looking for are marketing related, you can see here that it started to give a slightly more in-depth response. And they're actually pretty good. So Here's some themes that you can look, right? Behind the scenes. Take your followers behind the scenes and show them the process behind creating your content. Whether it's a photo shoot, a recipe, or a project, this gives them an exclusive peek into your world. Do a Q&A with IGTV Live, Instagram Live. Do a throwback post. Do some user-generated content. Create some inspirational quotes, etc., etc., etc. Yeah. Here's the thing. Generic, right? Generic. I would want to say that to GPT. This is great. I like to be polite. You don't have to. It's generic. Ideas specific to running a ballet studio where the average age of my students is under 12. Now you're going to get somewhat different content. It's saying that it's generating, and as I scroll down, you'll see that it said, okay, certainly, here's some specific contents for ballet studios catering to students under 12. Mini dancer spotlight, ballet tips for younger dancers, costume previews, ballet fun facts, dance challenges, story time with ballet, parent testimonials. Now that's very clever because it understood intuitively that the majority of people who are going to be looking at my Instagram account are going to be under 12, that it's probably going to be the parents. So it's said, here are some parent testimonials. So it's giving you that idea. How can I get use my actual audience? Because it obviously that if you're teaching under 12s, your customer isn't the kids, your customer is really the parents. And so it's giving you some ideas on how to reach those parents. Ballet crafts and DIY, great idea. Simple things that you might add that are not a part of your main subject matter, or if you're teaching babies ballets or something like that, and you adding some little fun games or crafts that you do as part of your lesson, all of those kinds of things. And of course, dancer of the week, etc. Yeah. So this is fundamentally mind-blowing. That didn't take me more than a sentence and a few seconds, and I came up with some terrific ideas. Or if I were operating a ballet studio and my primary customer was under 12, terrific ideas on what I can do inside of my social media account that's kind of Instagram ready. But we can go a little bit further than that. Okay, have a look. So let's say that we're going to stay with this information. I want you to remember that GPT will remember the information that you have up here. And I'm going to say, please, sorry about that. Give me more details about option 1 above. Now let's see what happens. Sometimes you'll get confused because there are 2 option 1s above, but most likely it's going to give me information about the most recent one. Let's see what happens. And there it is. Option 1 above was the mini dancer spotlight. And now it's given me a detailed list of how I can actually use that information inside of the social media. Yes, rather than just the broad idea, it's actually saying, choose a young dancer from your studio to feature each week. Gather content. This is step-by-step process of things that you can do. Write a bio, obviously about the dancer or your dance company or what have you. Feature the dancer inside of, what does it say? Craft a visually appealing post featuring the dancer. You can use a photo or carousel photos. So you can see that even though carousel photos is a relatively new concept, GPT is aware of that. And I talk about the relatively new concept idea because GPT does not know much about anything before, or sorry, after September 2021. Yes, the last trained data. So it searched the internet looking for all kinds of things everywhere. And the last trained data that it had was up until September 2021, or at least the data that's available to us. Yes. However, because people are using it now, it is starting to develop an additional database of content specifically about more modern things. It may still not have the facts and fiction, facts and information, but it's starting to develop an awareness. And this is where this problem of hallucination comes in. See, GPT, if it doesn't know the answer, will just make stuff up. And that's where you have to be careful. Let me give you an example of that. Okay. And forgive me, I know that I have people who visit from literally all over the world who will see this video or this content at different times. If this doesn't mean anything to you and your country, please try to understand the general idea of what it is that I'm putting. Tell me, Abraham Lincoln's, oops, sorry. Tell me what school, what high school did Abraham Lincoln's older brother attend before going to Harvard University? So it tells me Abraham Lincoln's older brother, Thomas Lincoln Jr., did not attend Harvard. In fact, Lincoln, Thomas Lincoln Jr. did not receive education beyond the rudimentary schooling available in the frontier areas of Kentucky where the Lincoln family lived. Thomas Jr. worked as a farmer like his father, and Thomas Lincoln Sr., and tragically died at a young age in 1812, long before Abraham Lincoln became president. That's very cool and very interesting and factually inaccurate. I might be wrong about this, but I believe that Abraham Lincoln had an older sister and a younger brother. And his younger brother died 3 days after birth, sadly. So this sounds amazing. It's just simply not true. So you have to be very careful when you put stuff into GPT. You are the expert. You are the professional. You need to fact check the information. Otherwise, you might get something that sounds completely plausible, but just ain't. Yes? Be aware of that massive limitation with ChatGPT.